Welcome to my studio, everyone. My name is Mark, and I'm an art professor and an artist who uses fountain pens to make art. In this video, I'm going to be looking at the tiny but mighty Kaweco Liliput, one of the smallest, most durable, and most versatile pens on the market. I've already reviewed the copper version of this pen on my channel, and since then it has become an indispensable part of my compact sketching kits. But recently I've acquired two more, an aluminum version and one made of stainless steel. Why? Because these pens, besides being highly portable, are also highly hackable, making them perfect for an artist who's looking for a pen that not only can go anywhere, but also one that can work in many different ways. So in this video, instead of doing a straightforward review of the Kaweco Liliput, which I've already done, I'm going to show you the many ways this powerful little pen can be hacked to make it work even better. Let's get started. The modern version of the Kaweco Liliput was first introduced in 2011 and is now available in a variety of metal finishes, including aluminum, brass, copper, and stainless steel. These pens are indeed tiny, measuring just 9.5 centimeters capped, a little over 8.5 centimeters uncapped, and when posted, finishing at 12.5 centimeters. Despite its size, the pen is still fairly comfortable in the hand, and really, for any artist used to working with narrow pencils like this one, a pen this size shouldn't feel out of place in the hand. I think most people base their decision on what finish to get on either appearance or the price. But there are subtle differences, and in one case a major difference, which we'll talk about later, that can determine your choice of finish. First, the weight of these pens vary by metal, with the aluminum version coming in at 12 grams, the stainless steel at 24, and copper, which is the heaviest of the finishes, at 26 grams. The difference is pretty small, however, when you consider that the super heavy copper pen weighs only a little more than a plastic TWSBI Eco. What is noticeable and significant is the difference in grippiness. Of the three pens, the copper is the least slippery. But there's a catch, because it was very slick when it was new, and only became less so after it acquired a patina. Both the aluminum and steel versions have a micro knurling on the surface, and are both fairly comfortably grippy right out of the box. But the knurling on the steel version is slightly more pronounced, making the pen easier to grip. If this is an important consideration, I would go with the steel version, or if you're willing to wait for the patina, get either the copper or the brass. One major drawback of the Liliput is its small ink capacity. These pens use a short international cartridge which holds just 0.7 milliliters of ink. Okay if you're writing with a pen, but if you're drawing with it, you can easily go through that much ink in a single drawing. Carrying an extra cartridge or two is not such a big deal, but the variety of inks that come in cartridges is limited. Yes, you can fill a cartridge with bottle inks using a syringe, and this is something that I do all the time, but so far there's no perfect solution for carrying refilled cartridges. I bought these little brass stoppers from Great Fountain, Italy, and they do work, but I find that over time they expand the bore of the cartridge so that it no longer sits tightly inside the pen, which means that you'll have to switch cartridges frequently. You can, of course, buy short international cartridges very cheaply and empty them, or even buy empty cartridges, but whether this is worth the hassle is up to you. The small converter that fits into the Kaweco Sport doesn't fit into the Liliput, but about a year ago, Kaweco introduced a converter with an ingenious folding piston that does. While this is a nice development, the ink capacity is still tiny, just 0.5 milliliters, if you get a full fill, which you never do unless you fill the converter using a syringe. One solution I've come up with, one I describe in detail in my review of the Kaweco Sport Brass, is to create a custom squeeze converter from a cartridge and silicone ink sac, the type used in replacements in old lever pens. These sacks can be ordered cheaply online and then cut down and then glued with silicone adhesive to a cut cartridge. This converter of sorts can hold 1.5 milliliters of ink, twice as much as a short cartridge and as much as a long international cartridge. One issue I found over time is that with frequent use, the bore of the cartridge becomes loose, and the cartridge will no longer sit securely inside the pen. This is why using a converter for this hack works better, since they're made of sturdier plastic, but I'm not sure whether it's worth destroying your converter for this purpose. Now, with the stainless steel version of this pen, there is an absolutely brilliant solution to the problem of ink capacity. Unlike copper and aluminum, stainless steel resists the corrosive properties of ink, which makes it an ideal material for filling with an eyedropper. This means that I can fill the entire barrel of this pen with ink, giving me a whopping 2 milliliters of ink capacity, more ink than many of my full-size pens with built-in filling systems. And it works great. I've had this pen eyedroppered for several weeks without issues. All you need to do is apply some silicone grease to the threads here for extra safety, and watch out for very low ink levels, since if there's too much air in the barrel, there's potential for the pen to burp. So far, out of all the options, this is the simplest, most elegant solution to the problem of ink capacity, and makes the steel version of the Liliput totally worth getting. I've reviewed a number of Kaweco Sports with the same nib as the ones found in these Liliputs, so there's no reason to repeat my tests here. I think it suffices to say that the nibs in these pens are perfectly fine for general drawing purposes. Stiff, dry writing with slight feedback. However, none of my 4 Kaweco Sports or my 3 Kaweco Liliputs have the original nibs in them. This is because these pens are particularly excellent candidates for nib swapping and tinkering. My copper Liliput has a wonderfully flexy gold vintage nib made by the legendary German pen company Osmia. While vintage gold nibs are not so easy to hunt down these days, especially with current gold prices, the Kaweco Liliput and the Sport give you a leg up in that they use a small number 2 size nib, though it used to be very common in old pens. This means that there are plenty of orphaned nibs available to buy and install. I talk about this process in detail in my review of the Kaweco Brass, and I'll leave a link to that video for you if you want more information. However, if you want to install a flex nib into your Kaweco Liliput and don't want to go through the hassle of hunting down a vintage nib, never mind the expense, I have an exciting discovery to share with you. If you take a 5.5 size nib from Fountain Pen Revolution and cut it down with a Dremel to the same size as the original Kaweco nib, then you can insert it into your pen and it'll work perfectly. No special adjustment needs to be made to the feed. It'll keep up perfectly unless you're a flex monster and really need to put down wide lines at high speed. These 5.5 Ultraflex nibs are some of the best, flexiest, and least expensive flex nibs on the market, and turn the Liliput or your Kaweco Sport into a super ultra portable little flex pen, perfect for sketching on the go. And lastly, my aluminum Liliput actually still has the original Kaweco nib in it, but one that I've modified into a Fude nib. This is a fairly easy mod, not quite as easy as the mod for the Ultraflex nib, but still fairly easy, and is something how I explain how to do in detail in one of my previous videos. While you can order a Kaweco nib with a Fude modification from a number of nib grinding services, including the excellent fpnibs.com, I venture to say that my mod is actually better because the bend I've created is super large, giving me maximum line variation potential. So I can start with an extra fine, switch over to vertical for fine, then I can go medium, broad, double broad, and then triple broad. I don't even know what this is. Quadruple broad. And the feed keeps up perfectly well. These pens, especially with their custom nibs, make them absolutely indispensable part of my ultra compact sketching kits. While many portable materials force you to compromise on comfort or versatility, these pens do not, allowing you to create the same kind of work you would with full-size drawing implements. If you'd like to see a deeper dive into the world of portable kits, I have a video for you, the link to which I'll leave below. But here is a quick overview of the setup I'm currently enjoying. This is a case made by the company Alpaca called their Hub Pouch Pro. It holds 2 travel brushes. These are made by Escoda. And this Kohinoor 5608 2mm clutch pencil. On this side we have a Pentel Waterbrush, their medium tip, with a cap that I shortened by at least ½ inch. And then we have my 2 Liliputs. One with the Ultraflex nib and one with the Fude nib. I used to carry the copper one around, but unfortunately the gold vintage nib in here is fairly expensive and not something I want to lose. And then on this side I have a watercolor box, which in the United States is sold by a company called Whiskey Painters, and this is their small Napoleon palette. And I have this little homemade water reservoir, which I attach to the palette using Velcro. On the outside of the case, I keep a little scrap of high quality paper towel, these are blue shop towels, and this very thin eraser made by Pentel. This case is perfect for all kinds of work, but lately I've been pairing it with this little A6 watercolor sketchbook made by Hahnemuhle. I'll list everything I just showed you in the description section. I hope you enjoyed this nerdy exploration of the Kaweco Liliput and the many things that can be done with it. As much as I enjoy doing pen reviews, I must admit that they can get repetitive at times, especially when the pen I'm reviewing uses the same Jowo or Bock nib and there's nothing new to talk about. These kinds of videos, where I get to cover not just the pen, but the many ways you can mess with it, are a nice way to break the mold. Thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe or even consider becoming a channel member, and see you back in my messy studio very soon. Bye for now.